Okay, welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show, the show where you get to ask any question to us and we'll answer it about insurance claims. Bullshit in the insurance world, even. I'm Matt Mulholland. That's Remington Huggins. Remington, you look extra snazzy suddenly. Did you start with that jacket on?
I did, but I'm quick. I can switch mask really quick if I want to. So here I am.
Do you have an ugly mask to make me feel better? Because you're just making me look terrible right now.
Yeah, I don't. That's the one I'm missing. I don't have that one.
Damn it.
Oh,
You're
gosh.
really
You're crazy.
fair.
You're
not
crazy,
fair.
Matt.
My light's right. All right. So today we're actually discussing roofing claims in Florida. We've got someone in the wings that's waiting to come on. I'm going to introduce her in just a second. Let me get this out of the way. Hey, Leo. So if you're watching this live, the benefit of watching this live is you get to ask us questions as we go along. So this entire show is driven by the viewers. If you're listening to this on a podcast after the fact, we're sorry. You're not getting the full experience. It's a shame, really. I mean, I highly doubt my voice is keeping you awake while you drive that much. Maybe it is. I don't know. Remington, do you have a soothing voice? Does your wife ever tell you that?
No, never.
Leo asked me what kind of fertilizer I put in this beard. Pretty much everything that I eat goes in it, so I guess that would count. I try to get it out. Yeah. There's probably beard fertilizers that help things grow, but I don't know. All right. So in the wings, I've got the director of commercial operations at CMR Construction and Roofing. I think it's construction and roofing. I don't know, but it's CMR. They're a very large outfit, and Tiffany was on stage with me in Dallas for the SRC event when we had the Badger panel. We had Steve Badger on, and Tiffany gave that guy hell. It was great. So I'm going to bring Tiffany on right now. How's it going, Tiffany?
Hi, guys. I'm good. How are y'all?
Yeah, pretty good. I'll always love this moment where we pretend that we haven't said hi to each other yet.
Yeah. It's fun. I just got tickled that you said I gave the guy. What'd you say? I gave him hell?
You gave him hell. It was actually pretty intense.
I thought we all had fun.
It was fun.
I embarrassed him just a little bit.
A little bit.
He turned bright red.
Yeah, he wasn't thrilled with the situation. And I don't remember what you said exactly. I don't remember most of what was actually said, but I do remember the results and the reactions to most of it. And he definitely was taken aback that you were even on the panel. So there must be something there.
Well, I don't know if he's ever had a woman on stage with him ask him what he thought about ass. So I think that's what really took him off.
That was actually the best. Do you know what ass is, Remington?
I do, but probably not in your context.
It's ash, smoke, and soot. So it knocked him off of his game.
Yeah. She brought up that he liked ass, and I said that I heard the same thing. So it was pretty funny. He got a little red. It's a good time. Making insurance company guys blush a little bit is fun. Yeah. All right, so we are going to be talking about bullshit in roofing related claims in Florida. I know that after that hurricane, there's a lot of crap that people are dealing with right now. What is CMR dealing with mostly?
Well, we have two divisions that are in Florida. We've got commercial and residential. And so everything I can speak of is on the commercial side. And we are dealing with a lot of slow response on some of our properties that have claims. We come in with our national accounts that we represent wherever there is natural disaster or storms. We go to respond to help our accounts that are established, and mitigate their properties and protect them and get them to the point of restoration. And I could tell you that this time around, we had to put the pause button on because everyone is still waiting. A majority of them are still waiting on their insurance company's response. So it's been slow go.
How long has it been? It was in October, wasn't it?
September 28th is when the storm hit.
September.
Mhm.
I feel like this is something I probably should have known.
Yeah, it did. And so, we're still months in. And everyone, of course, gets their initial response. We've referred everyone to their counsel or their public adjusters that they need to work with on it. But even still, it's still slow response. And then, they get their initial conversation or discussion or maybe claim offer, and then it goes back into negotiation. And now we have a couple of big ones that, they're like wanting to come back and say, can we re-inspect the property again when all of the inspections had already been done once? So, I don't know what the purpose of that is, but that's some of the items that we're dealing with. We're ready to roll and help get these properties back to restoration with materials and boots on the ground, but we're still waiting. So,
Remington, is there a specific amount of time they have to respond?
Yeah, so there is in Florida, a 90-day ticker, so to speak, where once the claim is filed, and I actually did some heavy research on this specifically last week because I'm getting a lot of phone calls from contractors and public adjusters and quite frankly, a lot of other attorneys that they're saying, hey, these carriers aren't coming with a final coverage decision before X amount of days. Even there's some carriers that are saying only that statute applies to homeowners policies and not commercial policies. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but yeah, and I can tell you in about 5 minutes the exact statute. If you would have asked me about 36 business hours ago, I could have told you, but a lot's happened since then. But I can definitely pull it up.
You got to start memorizing those things and be one of those lawyers that can bring that shit up on the fly. That's statute number blah, 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 like a Tim Varga or something.
Yeah. Well, when you can just look it up in 2 seconds, I like to use my bandwidth for things that is necessary.
That makes sense. Yeah. So I wonder, though, if that statute really kicks in until a proof of loss is submitted, though.
It says this. It says specifically within 90 days after insurer receives notice of an initial reopened or supplemental property insurance claim from a policyholder, the insurer shall pay or deny such claim or portion of that claim. So, and of course, it has a little asterisk, if you will. That's what I like to call it. Unless the failure to pay is caused by factors beyond the control of the insurance company. So it is 90 days. And that
but
is
they get that.
What's that?
But they get that whole reasonably delayed issue.
Yeah. And, let's just all be honest. They're going to say, since this was a major catastrophe, since Irma in 2017, that they don't have the resources and everything else to make every single claims decision within 90 days. We all know that's happening, right? That's going to. But to piggyback off of what Tiffany said earlier is, they're doing multiple inspections, maybe for reasonings that's not in a hidden agenda. Like they've already seen the property. These people should have already been making claims decisions and not saying, oh, well, hey, we need to take a look at it again. But by the way, our guys aren't available for another 45, 30 days, So, I'm just piggybacking off of what Tiffany says.
I think that makes sense. Claims decision is not the same thing as an agreement. It's just whether or not they're going to allow any claim payment. So it could be based off of a claims decision on every line item that is claimed if you have sent in a proof of loss. But outside of that, they just have to say if they're going to open up coverage or not. And the new law makes it 60 days, but that probably won't take effect for Hurricane Ian. Hopefully that law doesn't take effect for Hurricane Ian. Was there ever kind of verdict on that? Have they decided that that's true, that it's only for claims made after January 1st, or is it policies after? Has there been a decision on that? Do you know?
Ian's not going to be subject, from everything I've read, unless for some reason Florida legislator wants to come out tomorrow and change their mind. which they can, but it's not retroactive, which means that it doesn't affect dates of loss that occurred prior to this new legislation coming in. So Ian is going to be subject to the old legislation and old laws.
Well, let's pretend you're an insurance company and suddenly there's a hurricane that hits and you have 5,000 claims to go run. And you have to get people out there and they have to make a decision within 60 days. So now you have to get someone out to however many thousands of claims that you have. They have to put all the documentation in. They have to make sure that they do it right because there's public adjusters on almost every file that are going to harp on them if they do it wrong. And they have to come up with some kind of a claims decision. Is it better for them just to hire a crappy, really lowbrow, right out of the Burger King drive-through, hire adjuster right out of there, just send out a shotgun approach of every adjuster under the sun and let them write something so that they don't violate that provision, and then worry about later on whether or not if the policyholder agrees or disagrees. If they say no, then you can send out a better adjuster. That sounds like the only way you'd be able to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how adjusters are going to meet the 60-day mark for another hurricane. That I don't think that's even possible.
Tiffany, let me ask you this with your thumb on the pulse and lack of better terms, if you will, but you're on the front lines as a contractor. Would you rather meet an adjuster that's, seasoned versus somebody who's new? I could see pros and cons in both, where
It's actually a great question.
Yeah. I could see pros and cons in both. So I'm just, what do you have to say about that, Tiffany?
From a commercial standpoint, contractor, I would much rather work with someone that's seasoned. It's only better for the policyholder because we don't have to go back and forth so many times. Their scope doesn't have to be reviewed if they're seasoned and they know what they're looking at. But that's difficult on the commercial side because there are so many different commercial systems out there. But that's what I would prefer.
It would make sense
to work with the seasoned.
I think
the newer ones could be easier with the residential side because it's so systematic. And I think they should put their seasoned ones more on the commercial side.
I'm curious what the audience thinks on this one. If you guys are dealing with brand new adjusters or seasoned adjusters, put it in the comments which one you like working with better. My experience in dealing with the brand new guys, if they didn't just come out of some academy all excited about their new job and feeling like they're $1 million, maybe they just got their Hague certification or something crazy. And then they think that they're hot shit, then they're probably reasonable and they're a lot easier to deal with. And once they realize you're not going to be a dick to them, they'll actually try to learn from you if you've been doing this a long time. And I like working with those guys. But after a major cat event, those guys are in a hurry. They've got too many claims. They don't have the time to spend with you on these. And these claims really ought to be a 3-hour investigation, really. So they don't have the time to do that. So they're only going to investigate what's claimed. So you have to go out, you have to do your job. You have to claim the damages in order to force them to investigate those things, in order to force them to actually make a decision on those things. Do you think that 90-day rule applies to every line item? The 90-day decision on whether there's coverage, would that be per coverage A, coverage B, coverage C, coverage D, or is it per line item that's claimed? What do you think?
It says, quote unquote, the insurer shall pay or deny such claim or a portion of the claim unless the failure to pay is caused by factors beyond the control of the insurer. So to me, just because it says or a portion of the claim, I think you could categorize that as line items versus, hey, we're paying for this full roof. If that makes sense. I think that would be, yeah. I think within 90 days, this law is saying within 90 days, the carrier has to tell you what they're opening up coverage for and what they're not. I think, it doesn't necessarily have to be maybe specific line items. Like, for instance, we're going to cover the front slope, but not the back slope. But in these days, everybody's using Xactimate. So let's just be honest. The line items are going to be there when there's a coverage decision, especially in Florida, because they have to.
On a commercial standpoint, they may say, yes, we're going to cover something within 90 days, but they're not giving the policyholders any information of how much.
I mean, it's
So-
ambiguous law. It definitely doesn't say that one way or the other. The way the carriers tend to utilize something like that is on a case-by-case basis, whatever works with them best. If they're talking about coverages in an appraisal, in Georgia especially, when they're trying to say that they don't have that as part of the scope, they'll claim that each individual item is its own coverage. So if that is the case, then that law would require them to make a coverage decision on all the items that are claimed. But on a reasonable basis, if we were to look at that, the generalized scope of a roof being covered or not would be one decision, not individual line items on coming up to the amount of loss for that general scope. I guess all it comes down to our lovely definition of the word scope again. That freaking word. If you guys listen to the show a lot, that's a common issue. In fact, the last time we really talked about this was when Steve Badger was on the show. He didn't have a good definition for us.
What was his definition?
He really skirted that one. He sidestepped the hell out of that question. So what he wants to say is that scope is, let me give you a little context on how he said it, because it wasn't really a straight up definition. So he's talking about a possible new appraisal bill for Texas where they limit the appraisal to only those scope items that have already been claimed, so that they wouldn't have something new come into the estimate suddenly. And he claims that that is things like an outhouse or something that wasn't in the original estimate that shouldn't show up when the appraisers go out there and finally take a look at it. So something that wasn't claimed or even discussed before. Problem is, the language it has in that appraisal bill works the same way it does in Georgia, where amount of loss doesn't include differences of scope, and the carriers utilize that word scope to mean individual line items. So differences of individual line items are not appraisable in Georgia and 3 other states that have made the same decision. So it's a scary thing, because if you don't actually define it in the bill, and he didn't, he's defining it verbally outside of it, then it can cause or lead to a misinterpretation of the intention behind that language.
Yeah. What about unseen damage that you cannot see or predict upon initial inspection?
I mean, that's all good questions. If it's tied to the roof, he made it sound verbally like that would be allowed. If it's tied to something separate that wasn't claimed at all, a completely separate structure, then that would be a difference of scope. But if you really get into the language, anybody could make any kind of determination otherwise on the way that that's actually supposed to be interpreted. I mean, luckily we have it on camera that he said that. So if ever there was a judge that decided to say what the original intention of that bill was, here's the guy that wrote it and here's what he says. We have it on camera. They probably won't find it though, because my show isn't that popular. Who knows? Let me ask you another question, Tiffany.
Okay.
And this is something that occurred to me as we've been talking.
Okay.
With a commercial loss, a lot of times they'll send out someone that's never dealt with commercial before.
Correct.
They might be a seasoned residential adjuster. They might be brand new, but generally it's someone that doesn't have any idea what's going on with that structure. Is that fairly accurate? Most of the time?
Happen, yes.
It seems to me that it would make sense that an insurance company would send out someone that knows the type of structure that they have written a policy for.
Correct.
Immediately. Otherwise, that could be an unreasonable or even possibly a vexatious delay. Do you think an insurance company is required to send out someone that is capable of making a appropriate decision, or someone that is competent for the policy that was written?
Correct. I do. That's my opinion. I believe that they owe that to their policyholder to send the type of adjuster for the type of structure and the type of policy that policyholder has been paying for. Yes.
What do you think, Remington? Do you think that's a requirement for a carrier? It's not specifically written. Is it implied?
I think it'd be implied. I think that's a fair statement.
Yeah. So if it's implied and they don't do that as a regular course of business, do you think that that could be an unfair claims practice?
I'd want to know more facts about it. You know, like for instance, if this individual, how long he's been with a certain company and how many claims and so forth, if that makes sense.
No,
Yeah.
I don't know if they do enough training for the products that they sell. I think that there should be more training for these adjusters. You know, just in my business alone, we do all different roof types, and I have to assign, you know, my team assigns different superintendents and different crews that are related to those roof types. I don't know why an insurance company couldn't do that.
You know, it would cost money, and they're already going insolvent. UPC is in receivership already in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
How many claims do you think they've paid out to suddenly be in receivership already after the storm? Or is it based off? I would assume maybe I'm wrong here. Let me retract that statement. It's probably based off of the amount that they have put into reserve for the claims that they have open, not necessarily the payouts that have already been made. So they're not supposed to touch the money that is put into reserve. So that probably has a lot to do with it as well. But it is interesting. Will Horsley asked me when I'm going to invite him on the show. The key is to learn how to spell my name. Well, that would help.
One T.
Only one T there, buddy.
He's sensitive about this.
A little bit. You know, the extra T is so frivolous. It feels weird having it around. It's just like, why are you there? It's like having an in-law stay a little longer than they're supposed to when they come to visit.
Now you're opening a can of worms.
Morgan Walker helps us out with the definition of vexatious delay.
Oh, yeah.
Vexatious delays, in law, a term used in insurance statutes providing for penalties for an insurer's conduct in unjustifiably refusing to pay insurance claims. James hired a lawyer to sue the company for the vexatious delay in settling the loss he had when an unknown driver damaged his car while it was parked in an unauthorized or in an authorized place on the street. I don't even understand the example this thing gives. Providing for penalties for an insurer's conduct and unjustifiably refusing. Unjustifiably refusing, it's not the same thing as unjustifiably delaying. I don't even like this definition.
No.
It doesn't even make sense. All right, so
Yeah, delaying is not refusing.
It's an unreasonable delay. It's time that could have been given to the policyholder in the form of money earlier on. And if you're holding on to that money for a period of time that there's no reason for you to have done so, it's unreasonable, then that could be a vexatious delay in Texas. Does that sound right to you, Remington? That definition was weird.
You know, I don't mess with auto stuff, so I'm going to stay in my lane here.
That's a property thing in Texas. I think Illinois as well.
Yeah.
Actually, definitely.
I know it is, but anything auto, I just stay away from it.
Yeah, auto's weird.
Why are the mortgage companies not pushing on the insurance companies to better respond and not delay?
That's a damn good question, isn't it? So I was looking at a mortgage placed policy earlier today. This is when the insured stops paying for their insurance or their mortgage, and the mortgage has to continue insurance on the property. So they get a mortgage placed policy placed on there. They become the named insured. A mortgage company is only interested in the value of the home just prior to the loss. That's all that their insurable interest is. They can't have an RCV policy because it's a betterment policy. So I don't know if the mortgage company cares that much as long as the value of the home isn't diminished. So I don't know. They do want the repairs to be made so that the value of a home isn't diminished. They are using the value of that home as the collateral for their loans. It really doesn't make sense that they aren't really pissed off about it all, but they don't seem to be. It's a good question.
I mean,
yeah, because the longer it sits without restoration, the lower the value goes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about how it affects I agree with you, Tiffany, 100%. And there's a stigma behind a house that's sitting there, you know, abandoned, or even a commercial property. Cause I know you do a ton of commercial property that's been vacant for 6 months versus 2 months. There's a different stigma with that. But what's the difference between a mortgage company, if that house is going to be put back to its pre-loss condition, whether it's a week after the loss or 8 months, as long as they're getting their mortgage payments and they know that there's going to be a check coming from the carrier sooner or later with their name on it as well. I don't know. I feel like they pick their battles. If they know, as long as they're going to be listed on that check, the money's already fronted. They already have that money out there for that property. But I don't know. I'm going
It's weird though.
Weeds.
I mean, there's other issues that go along with this. A lot of their loans are backed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. They both have requirements that the policyholder have RCV coverage. It doesn't specify RCV coverage on every type of damage, but it specifies that you're supposed to hold RCV coverage on the property. And yet there are RCV only for roofs coming out in policies coming down the road, and other coverage gaps that are definitely leaving the property to be vulnerable to a lot of liability issues. The mortgage company could very easily get stuck with the home if these very severe issues don't get taken care of. I mean, if the policyholder can't afford to fix it, they're very likely to just hand the property back to the mortgage company, and the mortgage company has to deal with that. I think they should get pissed off, and they don't. So there's got to be something there. Obviously, they're not as worried about it. I think Remington's right about that. It's weird. Maybe we should get a mortgage company on here.
What have you guys seen in the pricing? Like you said, everyone's using Xactimate, but Xactimate pricing not keeping up with all of the price escalation that we've had.
I'm curious how the courts see that kind of thing, Remington. Have you had any kind of case? I know Georgia probably hasn't, but do you have any cases that involve pricing from Xactimate being wrong?
Being wrong? Well, okay.
Or too low or too long?
Pricing is a state by state, like when it comes to law. For instance, there's some states that say, hey, it's the pricing at the time of the loss. And then some states say, hey, it's the pricing at the time when they're actually going to do the build back. So every state's different. I think this is where really public adjusters and attorneys can fight on these estimates, and contractors can too. But I don't want to put them in a gray area where they're quote unquote negotiating. But Matt, you've seen the thousands and thousands of Xactimate estimates. You can call out what's wrong and not. I can do the same thing in a deposition across from somebody whose name is on the Xactimate estimate and call out what's wrong. Why do you have a January 2023 price list? And whatever it might be. I mean, I think that's where advocates are for. And again, I truly, without negotiating, I think contractors can point some of this stuff out. Just as long as they're in the clear. But no, it runs rampant. I mean, and there's big that, in Ian, that these carriers are some of the big carriers are saying like new build versus a rebuild. And it's really messing up the pricing.
Yeah. But Xactimate itself with its price list, sometimes they take months to update. When COVID hit and there was a lack of materials available, the price for wood skyrocketed, and it didn't show up in Xactimate for months. And then they decided, and I saw a paper about this, I don't remember who wrote it, but they decided somewhere at Xactimate to slowly bring the price up, not just bring it up to what it currently is at. And the reasoning they had for that made no sense at all. But here's a real kicker. And I'm actually going to lay out some policy language for you guys here on how this really works. When the insurance company pays for a claim, sometimes they say that they don't want to update the price list when you actually perform the work. And there are some policies that don't require them to. So a lot of the policies say that we will pay the ACV amount at the time of loss until the work is completed. And so you have to have the RCV amount calculated for the date of loss minus depreciation. That'll be the ACV at the time of loss. And that's all they owe for ACV funds. They don't owe for ACV from when the work is performed. It probably wasn't anyway. They owe for that at the date of loss. When the RCV benefits, and in the definition of the RCV benefits, they often say that they will pay the amount that is reasonably necessary, the amount that is actually or necessarily incurred or spent, or the full amount of the RCV at the time of loss. And so sometimes they have those three options. Full amount of the policy, the amount that's actually necessarily spent or incurred, or the RCV amount at the time of loss. If it says at the time of loss is a third option, they only have to choose the lower of those three options, and it might be lower at the time of loss. Not every policy says that, but that's something you got to watch out for. You're not always actually owed RCV at the time that you make repairs. Now, you can argue that it's reasonably necessary and that it's implied that that would be part of the policy, but some of the language in these policies will really get you. Now, I don't think the adjusters or the attorneys even realize that, by the way, that it's written in there. Did you see that comment that was up a few minutes ago from Nick? Some mortgage companies own the insurance companies. Did you guys know that? I didn't know that.
No, I did not know that. Do we have any facts of which mortgage companies and which insurance companies? Does Nick know?
That would be interesting.
Nick says you'd be amazed how many hurdles homeowners have to go through to get a check endorsed. Baffled as to why mortgages who have insurable interest don't want to make the property whole again. Nick, if you could tell us what insurance companies are owned by mortgage companies, that would be cool, or at least one example. Mike Capelli says that in his experience, the mortgage companies accept what the insurance companies pay. Nick comes back with National General. National General Insurance Company must be owned by a mortgage company. Remington's already on it. Look at him type away. You have the perfect posture while doing it too. God, your beauty pisses me off, man. Yeah, I mean, this. Did you find it?
Yeah, I'm not seeing where, just on the cursory glance at it, National General is an Allstate company, but it's not going into details. Equity owners.
National General wasn't always an Allstate company. I wonder if it started out as owned by a mortgage company and was purchased by Allstate.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. So
yeah, you see, it seems like there'd be a little bit of conflict there, but who knows?
We got way off topic.
Yeah, we did. We're
in the weeds,
but it's all good. I mean, we're talking about these issues that Tiffany and her company are experiencing, which trickles down to everybody else in the industry. Obviously, the commercial building owners that Tiffany deals with, and public adjusters as well as attorneys. Tiffany, let me ask you this: trying to get back on track. From you guys working Hurricane Ian, if that's the best term to use, so to speak, what other big glaring issues are you seeing on a day-to-day basis?
Other than the slow response and the pricing being off, the other big issues is not knowing the scope. And we discussed that. Not, and you know what else? Not determining that the damage that's apparent is from the hurricane.
Got it. And I know Matt's been hearing this as well, but the slow response is just, and I think you said this earlier, Tiffany, this might have been a one-on-one conversation with me, that this is literally the slowest you've seen carriers move on any type of major catastrophe such as Ian.
It is. This is the slowest response storm I've seen from the carriers ever.
And isn't it kind of ironic that between Hurricane Ian, so hey, everybody, these insurance carriers have 90 days to come out with a coverage decision, deny or open up liability for portions of the claim and so forth. And this is one of the largest catastrophes in half a decade that's hit Florida. Yet they're putting all their concentration and resources on changing legislation just a month later. I mean, but then they say they don't have enough resources to help out the people that are paying them premiums. It just doesn't sit with me right.
It is unsettling for sure.
I mean, especially since we're all locusts and we're just going to delay the claims, do you think that they're going to start blaming all the delays on the public adjusters and contractors? Considering we're locusts.
I don't see how they can. I mean, we're just here to help and we're here to build back and restore. I don't see us being the bottleneck. We don't deal directly with the insurance companies, the public adjusters do, and the attorneys and the ones that we work with, I don't see them being bottlenecks to the process.
All right. So we've got this delay issue. We've got, I'm hearing a lot about the roof portions of the claims just being outright denied for any damages, even though there's obvious damages. They're claiming it's old damage. It's something that isn't wind, footfall. And I've even heard from some people on the inside of some carriers that they're being told that they're not allowed to pay for roofs. They can pay for everything else and they're not allowed to pay for roofs. Have you heard that too?
No, I have not heard that. What I have heard is there being that fine line between the rising water and the wind driven event. I've heard a lot of that because of all the flooding that occurred.
He's very upset about it.
Yeah, she is.
She's very upset about it. I should have known. Would it be cool if you could figure out what gender a dog was based on its bark?
Well, the meanest ones are females.
I don't doubt that at all. I don't know why. I'm not going to say why I believe that, but that just makes sense for some reason.
Yeah.
Completely arbitrary reason.
I do think the fine line between rising water and wind driven, event, I think might have bottlenecked some of the claims that have occurred because not all policies covered both.
Possibly, but the carriers are supposed to still pay for it if there's an overlap, and they don't have to separate out completely. If it's not separatable, is that a word? Separatable?
We're going to say yes.
You understood what I meant. So it's definitely a word. So if it's not separatable, then they still owe for it. So there's really no reason for them to be fighting where that demarcation line is between flood and wind-driven rain. If you can't separate it, you can't separate it. If you can separate it, that's one thing. Maybe they're still trying to separate it, but they can still provide partial payment for everything above the disputed line and still put something in writing, still provide some kind of ACV payment for the policyholder to get something going. They're required to perform the work as early as they possibly can, right? They have to mitigate further loss somehow. They can't do that forever with tarping and things.
And Matt, explain there's some viewers that have never dealt with a flood area and so forth. Just explain to them real quick why it's important to the difference between a flood and wind-driven rain from like a hurricane.
So a flood policy is a completely separate policy. It's not even written by your insurance carrier. It's federal NFIP kind of a policy. So you have a flood policy that is separate. The property policy, the homeowners or the building property policy, they're going to have possibly wind-driven rain as a covered peril, but they won't have groundwater covered or floodwaters. So if the floodwater causes the damage, then that's supposed to be paid by the flood insurance. If the wind-driven rain that comes through an opening of some kind causes damage, that's supposed to be paid by the property. You can't be paid for the same damage from both of them. So there is some overlap, which can be annoying. And maybe that's really why they're trying to figure out where their demarcation line is so that they can figure out which company is supposed to pay what portion of what. But if you can't separate it out, and there's supposed to be like a 50-50 split between the two. But the flood coverages don't really cover everything. And we're about to see in Florida where everybody's going to be required to have flood insurance. Everybody. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
But
it definitely flooded in areas they didn't expect this time.
And
I have a comment from an insurance adjuster. And this was when we were first started talking about delays from the carrier. So April says, sometimes there is no one to send. Every adjuster is based off the licenses they have in the states. and how many claims they already have. If that claim pops up after everyone else is full, that's just how it falls. They aren't intentionally trying to send someone not qualified. It's just who's available. That's why adjusters are told to get state licenses as often as they can. Most only have a few. They can't work where they have no license. Just want to point that out. Might have, and her comment gets cut off because I don't get the full comments if they're super long on the software that I'm using, guys. So make several comments if you can, if you're going to have a long comment. April has proven to me over the last year that insurance companies do a lot of things that seem like it might be purposeful, and it isn't. It just happens to work out that way. It would be nice, though, if the insurance companies had something in their systems that are designated who's next to have qualifications for those individuals, and maybe have a commercial policy set of adjusters and a residential policy set of adjusters, because that would be easy enough to separate it out that way. You don't know if it's a large loss or not necessarily, but you would know if it's commercial or residential. If a adjuster that just gets into the business is given a commercial policy, they probably aren't going to know how to read the damn thing, even if they have had training on homeowners policy. So yeah, okay, April, but they probably should have that designated at least in that way. So whether it's on purpose or not, it could be done better.
Matt, it's like any profession. Let's just say it's a public adjusting firm, or even in a law firm. Look, if you're signing up all of these clients as a PA firm, where you don't have a PA to actually adjust the claim, whose fault's that? I mean, you're signing all of these policyholders up, knowing you living in Florida, right? That's what we're talking about here, that there's a high potential of a Cat 3 hurricane that's going to hit in the next couple years. Like the law firm, like my firm, we really regulate how many claims we sign up and how many clients we take, because we don't want the work product to fall. Insurance companies should do the same. You know, I mean, really, I understand what she's saying. I don't agree with it. I don't buy it.
We have to be a little bit reasonable, though, right? To say we can't expect them to have enough people on salary or staff in the wings waiting for a major event. In the times where there isn't a major event, they don't need that cost in order to prevent them from having to increase their rates necessarily. But they are getting hurricanes pretty regularly somewhere. I mean, how many hurricanes did we have in the last few years? Just because it didn't happen in Florida for a while doesn't mean that they couldn't have gotten everybody that has been dealing with hurricane losses to get a Florida license, which is what April said. They're telling them to get different licenses. Well, and if they do have them split like that, I can tell you this. Well, let me ask you, Tiffany, how often do you meet an adjuster on a commercial claim that has never been on a commercial policy before?
I would probably say 2 to 3 out of 5 times.
That sounds about right for me too. That sounds about right. That's a lot. So if they have them split up like that, and that she only knows one carrier, but they don't all do that, and it seems like an easy way to go about it.
What she describes is, there's no ill intention, and she's describing like a rotation. And I'm not saying that there is an ill intention, but just like you said, there's got to be a way to do it better. All of us in business, and including, public adjusting firms or law firms, we all manage our bandwidth and what we can respond to. So I think that they should do the same.
I agree. No, she's coming. Remington, don't you start. Not you too, Brute. But for real, they have adjusters who can handle them. But if they're already full, it's hard to add another claim. But I am not saying I don't disagree with you. I'm not saying don't disagree. She does disagree with me. That's a double negative. Damn it.
April, I love the comments. I'm just saying, hey, look, if you're accepting premiums from somebody, it needs to be a reasonable time frame in which that claim's adjusted. That's all I'm saying.
I think increasing that time frame from 90 to 60 days is probably going to increase rates all by itself, because they have to have more adjusters to make that work.
Well, the payments are not slow response usually.
Shouldn't be. ACV check should be pretty quick. And
No,
an initial, we'll pay for this, this, and this. Even if they don't give them everything, something up front is better than nothing. By not having any kind of decision, they're not getting anything. April Remington is a national treasure. Don't you dare disagree with him.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, bud.
No, I meant the insurance premiums paid by the policyholders. Those are not slow response.
They can't be late. Yeah, that's true.
There you go, Tiffany. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that some unforeseen circumstances have come up and you haven't been able to pay your premiums because you haven't been able to put your property back together because the insurance company hasn't paid you to do so. And that is a unforeseeable circumstance that is pretty reasonable, but it doesn't get applied that way, does it?
Yeah.
And what happens if you stop paying your premiums while the claim is open?
No, as long as the date of loss you were covered, you're good to go. They can drop you afterwards, but as long as you were up to speed on your payments and so forth during that date of loss, they are liable to that date.
You know what else we had were big construction projects that were in progress when the storm hit. I don't know if y'all recall the cranes that had fallen on the new construction. That was our project.
Was it?
So, yes.
What was wrong with your cranes?
Those were not our cranes.
Uh-huh.
But, a hurricane hit them and it went through our roof and put a big hole in it. So we've had to itemize and inventory and document everything for the GCs to be able to process their claim on that.
We got a lot of video of that building during the hurricane.
I remember when the hurricane was happening and Jim Cantori was on that site and my daughter walked through the living room and she said, "Mom, it's not good when Jim Cantori's on your job site."
True. It's true. Hail Trace guys got video of those cranes collapsing. I was on that bridge with them at the time. Just looking back, we were probably like 300, 400 feet away from it. I missed the cranes falling. I'm so mad at myself for not seeing it. I was looking out the window, wondering what the hell the Hail Trace guys were pointed at because it looked like they were pointed straight to the water. So I'm looking for a boat or something that must be drowning. I don't know. There's nothing there. But it happened right there, and I missed it.
Yeah, we had just finished that route.
Yeah, and then you got to do it again. So that's beautiful for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they make a decision on that one quickly?
It's an ongoing decision, but yes, they did respond. The carrier did respond. I don't even know who the carrier is on that one, but the GC was quick to respond, and the carrier was there. And we were paid to respond and mitigate, and then to go back and restore. But we're still inventorying damage. Things that we didn't even think about 90 days ago. Like materials that were not installed yet, but yet damaged. Yeah.
I mean, it was a construction zone. So you had piles of materials that probably went flying. Yeah.
Or went missing,
Gone. And luckily you'll have bills of lading to show that you were supposed to have them and things along those lines. If you're in a construction zone that's about to get hit by a hurricane, you should take some quick video. Actually, you should do this as a policyholder as well. Take video of what you got. Quickly, and then get the F out of there. Do you hear that, Remington? I didn't say it.
I'm proud of you, Matt. I'm proud of you.
I'm trying really hard.
What I'm more proud of is that you're going to create an app when a dog barks, you can tell if it's a male or female. So that's what I'm doing.
That would be useful somehow for someone, probably.
Would you download it?
Well, I'd try it to see if it's accurate. And then once it is, I'd be like, that exists. And then I delete it immediately, probably.
Yeah. There you go.
I mean, it's got a 50-50 shot. If you could have it accurate more than 70% of the time, that would be pretty damn impressive. I mean, you could tell a female voice from a male's voice pretty quickly in a human, right? Maybe we don't need to get into genders right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
Maybe we shouldn't talk about that.
Let's talk about the difference between tile and asphalt roofs. Okay?
Yeah, let's do that.
Way
too much hesitation.
Tiffany, let me ask you a question. When your company are meeting with some of these commercial building owners, are you surprised by maybe the lack of knowledge that these commercial building owners, who, by the way, typically a commercial building owner is a sophisticated individual, where they actually don't know the coverages that they have?
Correct. Absolutely. Building owners and property management groups, they do not know what coverage they have. They don't know what coverage they have with EMS, and they do not know what coverage they have with the named storm events and how that changes the policy. They don't. And so a lot of times, unfortunately, after an event happens, then they're trying to figure it out. And that's when they need, contractors the most for response and mitigation. And we sometimes are standing on the sidelines like, okay, what can you authorize us to do? So in the slow response from insurance companies. So we advocate for our clients to get that done before storm season hits. Get your pre-inspection inspections, your pre-storm inspections done, because those are assets for you, just like videoing what you've got. Get your inspections done and get counsel to interpret your policy for you so that you know exactly what you can respond and how you need to handle your claim. Instead of being reactive, be proactive.
I like that concept, being proactive. Teach that in a lot of the classes that I do. It's easy to be reactive in this industry, especially when you're overloaded. You're waiting for the ball to drop or the next foot to fall or whatever on something that's coming, because you don't have time to get ahead of the curve. So a lot of the work is done up front, and it should be. You should take your time on that, but that's hard to do when you have 15 other people calling you right after a major event that also need your business. So it's definitely easy to be reactive as a contractor after a major event. I bet adjusters are the same way. They're going to deal with the squeaky wheels first because those are the ones that are complaining. Maybe you should be a squeaky wheel.
I don't squeak very well.
No.
But I do preach preparation. I mean, here with my team, I have large preparation plans, and we're ready. I mean, we've got boots on the ground, we've got materials, we have trade partners. I mean, when we responded in New Orleans, we responded really in large capacity, did 26 schools in 12 weeks so that the kids could get back in school. We are prepared, and we can only go as far as our clients know that what they can, allow and approve for response. So I just preach to them that they need to know before storm season hits. And it doesn't matter, hurricanes in Florida, it could be snow loads in Minneapolis, it could be hell in Texas. Wherever you're at, there's a storm season.
Texas freezes too, apparently. That's a thing.
Absolutely. Yes. It is a big thing.
Apparently that's a thing. So when you do a school, is there a line item in Xactimate to make the feeling of the structure dismal and like a prison? Is there a line item for that?
No.
You have to do that for free then. It's part of the cost of doing business.
Free. Yeah. Free service.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else they don't know about is their business interruption.
Oh, none of them know about that. They don't even know that they can claim that.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just, we urge them to seek counsel and get that understanding for them.
Do you think counsel will be more available going forward if the attorney's fees don't tend to get paid in Florida like they have been? Do you think that there's going to be, maybe this is probably a better question from Remington. Do you think there's going to be a mass exodus of attorneys from property insurance in Florida?
I think there's definitely going to be attorneys that are exiting property, first party property insurance. Yes, I do. It only makes sense. It's easier to get paid, right? before this new legislation. Now it's going to be harder. These attorneys are going to be looking for different avenues, especially ones who don't just 100% specialize in first party property insurance. Some that just kind of, even the 50% personal injury, 50% first party. I feel like they're going to be looking more towards just sticking with the personal injury or whatever it might be. So yeah, I mean, it only makes sense that the result of the attorney's fees is going to have other attorneys looking for, other avenues of revenue. It's just going to happen.
Do you think that property insurance attorneys are better than personal injury attorneys?
No, I don't think they're better. I don't think they're worse or better. Come on,
throw the gauntlet down.
I'm diplomatic here, buddy.
All right.
There's some really, really good personal injury attorneys, and there's some really, really good first party attorneys.
Right. But personal injury feels sleazy for some reason, right?
I'm not going to say that. No.
You're not going to say that?
No.
Tiffany will say it.
No, roofers are a dirty word too. So
That's true. It's true.
Hey, look, as we always say,
in some states, apparently.
I
don't know how that happened.
In every profession.
Yeah, that's a shame. All right, well, we're about to wrap this up. Tiffany, if you had Steve Badger in front of you right now, what would you say to him?
How's the ass going?
That's pretty good. I would love to see his face. Yeah, that's pretty good. If you were trying to give advice to contractors in Florida to continue dealing with all this bullshit with the insurance claims there, what advice would you give them?
Stay the course. Stay the course. Don't sell out. Hold your front line. It'll shake out. That's what I would say. That's what I keep telling my own people. It's coming. It'll shake loose soon. It'll have to.
All right, last question then. What's the best thing you've learned since dealing with insurance claims?
The best thing I have learned since dealing with insurance. The best
This is one of those questions that a real podcast would ask. I'm pretty proud of myself for this one.
The best thing that I have learned with dealing with insurance claims is that they are not the experts.
And let me say this, even when they're declared the experts, they're not the experts.
That is so true.
All right.
That is so true.
Every engineer I depose, I walk away respecting them less. And that's just the truth. Okay. So
yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, thanks for being on, Tiffany. I'm going to boot you off and wrap the show up. Really appreciate your time. And
thank you all for the opportunity. It was fun.
We'll tag you on a bunch of stuff so you can post this all over the place.
All right.
And you only said like 7 stupid things. So Steve Sully will be fine.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. If you guys get a lot out of this show, we really appreciate it. We don't make any money on this. So it would be helpful for you to go on our website and like and share it with everybody that you know. Subscribe to the channel. There is some merchandise on there. You can purchase some t-shirts. You can purchase a beer mug. You could have a beer with us in a Listen to This Bull beer mug during the show. How cool would that be? That'd be pretty fucking cool. Damn it. I said it. Oh, I was so close.
Come on, Matt.
Oh. Oh, well. Hey, if you guys are around Tulsa, Oklahoma on March 2nd, there is a Avoiding the Engineer Denial class in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Take a look at the Facebook page for more information on that. So Listen to This Bull Facebook page. And there's also one coming up on the 24th of March that will be on Zoom, a webinar version of that I haven't posted yet. Next week, we got somebody that's outside of our normal industry. This is someone that's in the painting world that we're bringing on. Her name is Morgan Knox, Morgan Ray Knox Ray. I honestly don't remember. It's like changed recently. Marriages. But Morgan Knox is what I know her as. I got a photo of her being a shithead. She was wearing one of my turds from my conferences. But she's probably one of, if not the smartest person I've ever met. And she's super awesome and super cool. So you guys should be on here, and we're going to talk about the world that you don't even think about, the interior stuff, the painting. I guess painting's on the exterior too. That's kind of a dumb statement. Painting stuff. We're
It's
gonna talk about
mostly on the interior, Matt. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless it's like wood and batten. All right. But with brick, stucco,
right. You don't paint.
It's still
Well,
painting, but
some people paint bricks. I don't know.
yeah, they do. They do. Hey, I'm
I
trying to
think
help
we're
you
all
out.
dumb
man.
as bricks about this stuff, and we need to learn about it more from someone who knows her shit. So be on here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, and we'll see you then. See if my button works.
See ya.